All right, welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of people probably think they already have down pat.
Yeah.
But we're going to find out. I think that maybe there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyday English conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to unlock the power of it. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to be mastering 50 common English sentences for daily life. And, you know, you might think, oh, I got that. But trust me, we're going to uncover some really interesting things.
Yes. Even if you think you've got the basics down, there's always
Right.
room for improvement, right? And we're going to uncover some fascinating insights that will level up your communication game.
Absolutely. And we're going to be using this book called English Conversation, 50 Most Common English Sentences for Daily Life.
Great book. Lots of practical scenarios covered.
Yeah, and we're going to go through all these different scenarios, and we'll decode the subtle art of greetings.
Yes.
How to navigate tricky restaurant situations.
Yeah.
How to even book a hotel like a pro.
That's right. This deep dive is all about making you a more confident and fluent speaker.
That's right. It's like we're giving you a verbal toolkit.
Yes.
For everyday life.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Chapter 1 is basic greetings and small talk.
Okay.
And I know you're thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I got this. This is simple.
Yeah, it seems super basic, but I have a feeling there's more to these simple exchanges than meets the eye.
Yeah, what do you think?
Absolutely. Even something as simple as, how are you?
Right.
It's more than just a question. It's a social ritual. It's a way of opening a conversation, showing politeness. But the tone and context can completely change the meaning.
Like if you're walking down the hall at work and you see somebody and you're like, hey, how are you? And you just keep walking,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
It sends a very different message than if you stop and actually look the person in the eye and you're like, hey, how are you?
Exactly. And our source material emphasizes this by showing how these greetings can set the stage for the entire conversation.
Yeah.
They create a certain atmosphere, whether it's casual or formal or somewhere in between.
Right. And there's this great example in the book with Alex and Sophia where they start with, the basic, hi, how are you? But then Sophia follows up with, it's a nice day, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And that just feels so much more,
It does.
much
more natural than jumping straight into business.
right.
And you know what? That little comment about the weather
Yeah.
actually serves a really important purpose.
Okay.
It's classic small talk.
Right.
And in many cultures, mastering small talk is absolutely crucial for building rapport.
It's not just about filling the silence.
It's not just about filling the silence.
Right.
It's about finding common ground and creating a comfortable atmosphere for conversation.
Right. So it's a really great takeaway
It is.
for anyone learning English.
Yeah, and keep in mind
Yeah.
that these subtle cues can vary across cultures.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, what might be considered polite small talk in one culture could be seen as intrusive or awkward in another.
That's true. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm being polite and somebody else is like, why is this person asking me so many questions?
Exactly. So it's a reminder that learning a language is about more than just grammar and vocabulary. It's about understanding the cultural context as well.
Okay, so let's move on to chapter 2.
Okay.
Conversation at a restaurant.
All right.
I think we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
You're in a different country and you're trying to order in a different language and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know how to ask for the bill.
Yes, feeling flustered,
Yeah.
trying to order in a different language,
Right.
or unsure about how to ask for the bill politely. This chapter breaks down the entire restaurant experience.
Okay.
From the moment you walk in to the moment you pay. It covers all those essential phrases you need, like, I'll have,
Yeah.
and could we get the check, please?
Yeah, it even gets into the specifics of ordering,
It does.
like, how to ask for a table for two,
Yes.
or if you have dietary restrictions. There's this example where Alex is ordering and says, I'm allergic to shellfish, so I'll skip the shrimp cocktail.
That's a great example
Right.
of how clear communication can make all the difference in a restaurant.
Yes.
It helps to ensure that you get exactly what you want
Right.
and avoid any unpleasant surprises.
Right. And I noticed that the source material really emphasizes the importance of politeness in a restaurant setting.
Yes, very
Like, using, could we get the check, please?
Yeah.
Instead of just like, check.
Yes.
It's just more respectful.
much more respectful. It's all about using the right register.
Right.
In this case, a more formal and polite tone is appropriate.
And they highlight the flow of conversation
Right.
in a restaurant, like from ordering drinks to maybe asking about the specials to then finally requesting the bill.
Yeah.
It's like a script.
It's like a script, isn't it?
Yeah.
And knowing these phrases and the order in which they're typically used can help you feel much more confident and prepared when dining out in an English-speaking environment.
Absolutely. It takes the anxiety out.
Yeah, it removes a lot of the anxiety and the guesswork, allowing you to relax and enjoy the experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've done greetings.
Yes.
We've done restaurants.
That's right.
What could be next?
Stay tuned to find out.
All right, we'll be right back after a short break. Okay, welcome back. So far, we have tackled greetings.
Yeah.
We've done restaurant talk.
We have.
And I feel like we've already uncovered some really good strategies for just clearer, more confident communication.
Yeah, and we're just getting started. Remember how we talked about the importance of tone of voice and body language?
Right.
We'll be weaving those ideas into our analysis as we continue.
Yes, because even though this is audio only, those nonverbal elements play a huge role.
Absolutely.
In how our messages are received. Yeah.
Even in English.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started learning English as a kid, I would often get confused because people would say one thing, but their body language suggested something totally different.
Oh, it's a classic example of how communication is about so much more than just the words themselves.
Right.
Think about it. You can say, "That's great," with genuine enthusiasm. Or you can say it in a flat, sarcastic tone that conveys the exact opposite meaning.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And while we can't demonstrate those nuances orally, we can definitely discuss their impact.
Yes. And I think that awareness is so important for anyone trying to master English conversation.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that even a simple phrase like, "How are you?"
Right.
can have a million different shades of meaning, depending on the tone, the context, and the nonverbal cues that accompany it.
Okay, so let's keep that in mind as we move on to Chapter 3. Booking a hotel. This is a situation where clear communication is essential.
Especially if you're traveling in a foreign country. I remember my first time trying to book a hotel in Italy. I ended up with a room overlooking a noisy construction site because I didn't understand the difference between garden view and city view.
Oh, the joys of language learning.
Yeah.
But this chapter equips you with all the phrases you need to avoid those kinds of mishaps.
Right.
It breaks down the process step by step from specifying dates and room types to confirming prices and amenities.
Yeah, the source material even goes into specific vocabulary, like deluxe room, twin beds, and booking confirmation. There's this one section where Alex asks for a non-smoking room, which is something I'd never even thought about before.
It's true.
But could be really important for some travelers.
Very important.
Yeah.
It's those little details that can make all the difference in having a comfortable and enjoyable stay.
Yeah.
And notice how Alex also asks about the cost per night to avoid any surprises at checkout. Clear communication is key.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to finances.
It's all about asking the right questions.
It is.
And making sure you're on the same page as the person that you're talking to. And that brings us to another important point that we touched on earlier. The difference between formal and informal English.
Yes.
How do you think that plays out in a hotel booking scenario?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, you generally want to be polite and respectful when booking a hotel.
Yeah.
But the level of formality can vary depending on the context. If you're calling a luxury hotel, you might use more formal language than if you're booking a hostel online.
Right. That makes sense. So it's about being aware of the situation and adjusting your language accordingly.
Exactly.
Like if you're emailing the hotel, you'd probably use a more formal tone than if you're chatting with the receptionist at the front desk.
Exactly. Yeah. And our source material offers a good mix of formal and informal phrases to help you navigate those different scenarios. For example, could you please tell me about your room rates? Is more formal than what are your prices like?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not just about the words themselves, it's about the overall tone and delivery.
Exactly.
You wouldn't want to be overly casual or use slang when dealing with a hotel representative, but you also don't want to sound stiff or robotic.
No, you don't. It's about finding that sweet spot, being clear and polite while still sounding natural and engaging.
Right.
And that takes practice.
Yeah.
But the more you expose yourself to different styles of English conversation, the better you'll become at adapting your language to fit the situation.
All right, so we've covered greetings, restaurants, and hotels, all very practical scenarios for travelers and anyone navigating daily life
They are.
in an English-speaking environment. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Chapter 4, daily conversations with family members.
Okay. Yes. This is where we see a different side of English conversation.
Yeah.
Warmer, more familiar,
Yeah.
and full of those little expressions of care and concern
Right.
that are so central to family relationships.
It's like a different dialect almost.
It is. It's like a different register.
Right. Like, did you sleep well? How was your day?
Exactly.
They might seem mundane,
Right.
but they carry a lot of emotional weight
They do.
within a family. I remember feeling a little awkward at first using those phrases
Yeah.
with my English-speaking in-laws,
Right.
but now it feels completely natural.
It does.
Yeah.
It's about building that familiarity and comfort level through repeated interactions.
And our source material does a great job of capturing that warmth
Oh, it passed.
and ease in the dialogue between
Yeah.
Sophia and her parents.
That's right.
There's one exchange where Sophia's mom asks, "Did you have a good day at work, dear?" And you can just hear
Yeah.
the love and concern in her voice.
You can. It's those subtle nuances that make family conversations so special.
Right.
And it's a reminder that even the simplest phrases can convey deep emotions and strengthen those bonds of connection.
It really is. It's a beautiful takeaway.
It is.
Language can be a powerful tool for building and nurturing relationships. Absolutely.
Not just conveying information.
That's right.
It's about creating a sense of belonging and shared understanding.
A shared understanding, exactly. And that's something to keep in mind as we continue to explore these 50 common English sentences.
Right.
It's not just about mastering the words. It's about understanding the power they hold to connect with others on a deeper level.
So we've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more to explore.
Yeah, there is.
We've talked about greetings, dining, travel, and even family dynamics.
That's right, we have.
And through it all, we've been weaving in those crucial elements of tone, body language, and the difference between formal and informal English.
Yes.
And
And remember those subtle cultural cues we mentioned.
yeah,
We'll be delving into those as well as we continue our deep dive. There's so much richness and depth to be found
right.
in even the most commonplace English phrases.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we've really journeyed through the heart of English conversation.
We have from the awkwardness of those first introductions to the warmth of those family chats.
It's amazing how much we've unpacked
Right.
from just a handful of seemingly simple phrases.
It is. And speaking of those phrases, we've been guided by English Conversation, 50 most common English sentences for daily life.
Yes, our trusty roadmap for this linguistic adventure.
It really is.
It's such a practical resource. And, you know, I think what makes it so effective is that it goes beyond just listing phrases. It shows you how they're actually used in different contexts,
Right.
which is so important for mastering those nuances of conversation.
It's like having a native English speaker whispering in your ear,
Okay.
giving you like insider tips
Yes.
on how to navigate those everyday interactions.
And as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to highlight one more crucial aspect that we've touched on throughout this episode: the importance of cultural awareness.
Yeah. You mean how even simple phrases can carry different meanings depending on the culture?
Precisely. Let's take the phrase, "let's split the bill," from the restaurant chapter. In some cultures, this is totally normal, even expected.
Right.
But in other cultures, it might be considered rude or even insulting.
Wow, I never even thought about that. So even though we're focusing on English,
Yes.
it's essential to remember that English is spoken all over the world.
It is.
And those cultural variations can have a huge impact on how our words are interpreted.
Huge impact. Absolutely. And that's why learning a language is about so much more than just memorizing vocabulary.
Right.
It's about developing that sensitivity to those cultural nuances and adapting our communication style accordingly.
So how can our listener develop that cultural awareness?
Well, it starts with curiosity.
Okay.
Pay attention to how people interact in different settings, even if you don't fully understand the language.
Right.
Observe their body language, their tone of voice, the way they use certain phrases.
It's like becoming a cultural detective.
Exactly.
Looking for those clues.
Looking for those clues.
About the values and norms that shape communication.
Absolutely. And the more you expose yourself to different cultures,
Right.
the more intuitive you'll become at navigating those subtle differences. It's a lifelong journey.
It is,
yeah. Discovery.
Okay, so I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of everyday English conversation. We've covered so much ground today.
So much.
From basic greetings to, really nuanced cultural insights.
And I hope our listener feels empowered to put this knowledge into practice.
Me too.
Remember, fluency isn't just about speaking perfectly.
Right.
It's about communicating effectively.
Yeah.
And building meaningful connections with others.
Absolutely. And even though we focused on these 50 common sentences, this is really just the beginning. The more you use these phrases, the more confident you'll become, and the more you'll discover the endless possibilities of language.
The endless possibilities. I love it.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Exploring this with you.
To our listeners, keep practicing, keep exploring. And remember, every conversation is an opportunity to connect, learn, and grow.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
See you next time.